I'm Enrico Coen, author of Cells to Civilizations. I'm going to read a passage taken near the end of the book that tries to bring together different perspectives on how we might view the humble object of an apple. Cézanne was a man obsessed. Some of his obsessions were rather unfortunate. He developed a terrible fear of being touched, as Émile Bernard came to realize after he made the mistake of trying to help him from falling one day. But his obsession with apples is something for which we are eternally grateful. According to the critic Gustave Geffroy, Cézanne proclaimed, "I will astonish Paris with an apple." His aim was not simply to copy apples, but to use these humble subjects to explore relationships in colour, tonality and form. Compare Cézanne's painting with Renoir's treatment of a similar subject done at around the same time. Renoir's apples seem softer than Cézanne's and lack their strong sculptural quality because he saw and painted them in his own way. Scientists also portray apples in several ways. The apples of physics come in several varieties. There is Newton's apple, which falls according to the law of gravity, and Einstein's relativistic version embedded in space-time. There is also the apple of quantum mechanics, comprising numerous small particles that behave in a bizarre and fuzzy manner when we look closely. Then there are the various apples that arise through life's creative recipe. The apple that has been honed over many generations of natural selection, the apple tree that develops from a small pip, and the apple that we learn to appreciate through our neural frameworks. All of these apples are connected with each other. I wrote the book to try and understand the principles behind the amazing transformations we see in the living world. First of all, there's the transformation of evolution, through which all living creatures on the planet arose. Then there's the transformation of development. You and I, and all viewers of this video, started off as microscopic fertilized eggs, which transform themselves in 9 months into newborn children. And then there's the transformation of learning. We all grow and learn through interacting with our environment, so that from newborn baby you get to a reasoning, walking, talking adult. So there's that process as well. And then finally we have the process of cultural change, another remarkable transformation. So many of the transformations, one way of thinking about them is as journeys through a very high dimensional space, because all of these different processes involve explorations of different combinations. In the case of evolution, you're talking about different combination of gene activities or different DNA sequences. In the case of development, you're looking at combination of different proteins or expression of particular genes. In terms of learning, you're looking at different combinations of neural activities. And in cultural change, we deal with all sorts of combinations, like, for example, the letters or words in a language. One of the other key ideas behind the book is the notion of populations and thinking in terms of populations. Evolution, you're dealing with populations of individuals and their reproductive success. In the case of development, you're dealing with the populations of cells or molecules and the way they interact. And with thinking or learning, you're dealing with populations of neurons. And so understanding all these transformations requires really understanding and thinking in terms of populations, not just individuals. Part of my stimulus for writing the book was the feeling that there were some common connections. What did surprise me was the way that it unraveled in such a coherent fashion. That was a big surprise. I use art for several reasons in the book. One is because the visual delight of the objects. The other one is as a very direct way sometimes of introducing ideas. But perhaps most importantly, because they allow me to draw connections between the sort of scientific stories that I'm developing in the book and the process of artistic exploration as well. I suppose my ambition is for the reader to go away from the book really thinking about the living world in a completely different way, in a unified way, instead of seeing all these very disparate types of event, be it the activity of human beings, the way animals develop and grow, the way a plant interacts with its environment, to see all of these processes as different manifestations of some common ideas. Even the process of thinking, the process of what goes on in our brain, seeing all these things in a unified way instead of seeing them as just peculiarities, distinct peculiarities that don't really make sense or that are not normally connected. I never wrote the book in order to sort of become a bestseller, but of course I care about how it's perceived, and you want other people to appreciate the book and appreciate the ideas. Being shortlisted for the prize was an indication that in fact it had arrived home for some people, and that was very gratifying.